Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carolyn and I do all kinds of art and craft projects, a lot of crocheting, fiber art stuff, and basically just anything that gets my creative juices flowing. Today we're gonna do something I've never done before, which is dyeing yarn. I've done a lot of tie dyeing. Mostly I do it in the summer outside, I have a whole collection of liquid Rit dye, Rit All-Purpose Dye. I'm always really inspired by color and texture, and as I try to expand my kind of fiber art skills, I find myself wanting to buy all of this really beautiful yarn, but so much of it is so expensive. And since I already have some dye, I figured that it might be a good experiment to try and see if I can make anything that I really like and make it in a cost-effective way, and then I can actually use it for my projects. I got a bunch of little teeny tiny hanks of plain yarn so I can dye them. I got some 100% cotton, some alpaca, and some wool, and we're gonna see how the Rit dye takes. I've been doing a lot of research on what's the best way to dye yarn, especially if you're using liquid dye, and I think I've come up with a good method. So we're gonna see how it goes, and I'm gonna take you along for the ride. So I'm gonna walk you through some of the supplies. I have these gloves to just prevent myself from getting a bunch of dye on my hands. And I did order some utensils because I wanted to be using things specifically for dyeing and not using things that would also be used for food. So I got a spoon, some tongs, and some measuring cups and spoons. I also got these zip ties to make sure that the unwound hanks of yarn don't get too tangled and I can easily pick them up out of the pan. Then I also have these pipettes, which I use for dropping paint and things like that, and I thought that it might be useful to use them for different applications of the dye. You're gonna need some Dawn for washing your yarn beforehand, before the dyeing process, and then I also got some vinegar. People often use citric acid, but I figured I would just try using vinegar because it's something that I can use for other purposes if I end up not using it for dyeing and things like that. I just have some plastic cups for doing some mixing. All of this dye, you definitely don't need this many colors. I just happen to already have this many because I use it for tie dyeing, and I love colors, so I use a lot. I also have, I'm not sure if I'm gonna use these. These are the kind of hair dye bottles that I got to do the tie-dye application with, and I just cleaned them all out. I might use them for this, but I'm not sure if I will. I just have them here just in case. This is the dyeing process setup. So I've covered my kitchen area with plastic bags because I don't want to get dye on anything. I'm going to be using this old pan. It's pretty small, but the hanks of yarn that I'm going to be dyeing are also pretty small. I'm going to do one at a time. So I didn't feel like I needed to buy anything new. And the stove is necessary because you have to heat up the water and heat everything to make sure that the dye actually absorbs. So I've been soaking the yarn overnight in a mixture of a little bit of Dawn and tepid water. And now I'm just going to squeeze the water out and we're gonna get to mixing the dye. It's evening now, and I spent most of the day doing the dyeing, and it was good. I think it was good. It took a long time to do 5 little mini hanks individually, and I ended up using these little pipette guys to apply the dye all of the different colors. And I think that worked out really well. It definitely created less of a mess. Today is Saturday. Tomorrow's Sunday. I'm going to mix some different colors tomorrow and kind of see if I can get some more interesting results. So I think I'm gonna leave it there for today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. It is day 2 of my weekend yarn dyeing experiment. There are a few things I learned yesterday that I want to kind of work on today and do a little bit differently. One of those being the fact that I think the dye was a little bit too light. So I want to make the colors more saturated, darker, and kind of increase the dye to water ratio. And I also want to experiment a little bit with making my own color recipes. Yesterday I pretty much did dye straight from the bottle and didn't mix any colors together, except for when I made the dark purple. I mixed violet and navy blue to make a darker purple shade. But other than that, I didn't really do much color experimenting. So today I want to work on that and see how that goes. And yeah, I think those are the main things. And we'll get started right now. Good morning. It's later in the week and I just woke up. It's pretty early in the morning. But I gave the yarn a few days to dry. The cotton took a little bit longer than the wool to dry, the wool and the alpaca. And I wanted to show you the final results. So this is the batch from Saturday, day 1. And as you can tell, especially on the like cotton and one of the wools, I think, the colors are a little bit more faded. I think this was mainly due to the fact that I didn't make the dyes as potent as I could have. And so I definitely learned from that. These are the results from day 2 on Sunday. And I made the dyes a lot more potent for this day. And I think it worked out really well. So I'm gonna hank these up and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, I'm so excited. They look so good. So I'll show you day 1 first. I'm also going to show you the dyes that I actually used, and hopefully that can give you some inspiration for if you liked the colors that I used here. So let me pull them out. The light blue, like you see here, is Rit Aquamarine. The reddish color that you see here is Rit Coral. The neon green color is Rit Neon Green. The pink that you see here, that's Rit Fuchsia. The little speckles of purple were a combination of violet and navy blue. And I also used lemon yellow, which didn't really take very well on the first day. You can kind of see there are like very pale spots of yellow in here. And I made the mixture a little bit more potent on day 2, so you can kind of see it better in some of these. And so those were all the dyes I used on the first day. And on the second day, I mixed a couple of different ones. I wanted to get some more nuanced kind of pinks and purples, so I mixed, I did just straight violet from the bottle, and then, well, obviously mixed with water as well. And then I also did a little mixture of violet and petal pink to try to make like a bright mauve. And I also mixed neon yellow, neon green, and aquamarine to make this kind of like neon, like Kelly green that you see here. That kind of like bridges the gap between the aqua and the neon green. And then finally on day 2, I also did Sunshine Orange, which you can see kind of mixed in with this colorway. And what I wanted to say about the Sunshine Orange is that and I should have known this because I experienced the same thing during tie-dyeing last summer, it kind of muddies your other colors. So as you can tell from this one that I used a bunch of different colors in, the color definition is like, everything kind of looks like a little bit just sort of like mixed together, which is a nice effect. Like, I definitely like this. But I also noticed in the pan that the orange doesn't really, even with the vinegar, the orange doesn't really absorb all the way into the yarn. So that's just something to note. I mean, it's definitely a nice color, but it's not my favorite to work with, I think. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the actual yarn. So I got all of these mini hanks from Knit Picks, and I feel like, I don't want to say it feels like there's some like gatekeeping going on, but it almost feels like there is, because most of the channels on YouTube that I've searched and used for my research for this project, you don't really have anyone sharing where they got their base yarns from. And Knit Picks has a really great option, which I loved, that like I got these 10 little mini hanks. Each of them were about $1.50 to $2. And I got 2 of each of the different types of materials just to see, you know, experiment with them. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna order some more samples and continue to experiment for a little bit until I kind of figure out the colors that I really like and the methods that I like to do. I feel like no one really talks about where they get their base yarns from. Some places that I found that sell like exclusively base yarns are on the pricey side, and they don't really have samples that you can try. So I thought Knit Picks was a really good option. They do have larger hanks that you can get if you already know what kind of materials you want to use. But I thought it was really nice that they had so many little tiny ones, and they're so cute. I'll also tell you exactly which materials I got for the hanks. I have the little tags here still. Let's see. I got what they call palette fingering weight, which was 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And I also, the other wool I got was wool of the Andes worsted weight, which was also 100% Peruvian Highland wool. The 100% baby alpaca was Andean Treasure sport weight. And then I also got Simply Cotton worsted weight, which was 100% organic cotton. And Simply Cotton fingering weight, which was also 100% organic cotton. And what am I gonna do with all these? I already have a plan. I have really been wanting to try scrap crocheting or scrap knitting. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I do want to get back into knitting, and I'm feeling pretty inspired by people like Larka Bagger, who do really interesting like magic balls of yarn that have like all different scraps in them. And I think that because I have such small quantities of these different colorways, it would be really fun to just kind of mix them into stuff. I think it really helped that I used these little droppers because that made it easier to get more accuracy with where I placed the color. But at the same time, I do want to experiment with doing speckling, and that would require powder dyes. The only thing about powder dye that makes me hesitate is that you do have to wear a mask, and I have cats that I can't put masks on when I'm dyeing. So I would have to wait until the weather gets a little nicer so I can do speckling outside on my porch. I also think that I might be able to experiment more with the concentration of vinegar in the water solution that I made. On both days of dyeing, I used a 1/4 cup of vinegar to 2 cups of water, and I think that worked fine, but maybe the colors would be brighter, or they would take more quickly and make more interesting patterns if I use more vinegar. So we'll see. So I think that's it. If you guys have any questions about the process that I did, anything that I mentioned in this video, please leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear about anyone else's experiences with dyeing. If you have any tips, tricks that you learned, I'm definitely going to keep doing this. So stay tuned for more videos, more information, hopefully, as I learn. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.